when you help someone and you're even a tiny cog in changing someone's life, it's you just want more. You can't help it. And my husband says, couldn't you have just been a shopaholic? Wouldn't that have just been easier?
Philanthropy is a critical part of our society. And like we said earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is and why it is and so forth. But it's, as Heidi said, you can't do without it. It's a must-be part of your life.
Today, we're going to dive into the journey of turning personal pain into a force for good with our special guest, Heidi Johnson. Heidi is the founder of Charity Matters, and we're going to discuss with her how a personal experience can spark a movement, the role of storytelling in philanthropy, and how each of us can be inspired to serve and lead change for good.
Thank you for having me, Siobhan. It's really a treat to be here with David and Dionne and with you as well. Really
That's
excited
awesome.
to be here.
And the name of your podcast is Charity Matters. So we're going to talk a little bit about why charity matters tonight. Heidi, let's get started with you sharing with the audience about how you came to be doing podcasts that highlight nonprofit founders.
Every journey starts with something. And for me, and what I've really found from most people is there's typically something pretty significant that happens to us that affects that really makes us have to change. And I don't think change comes in little microdoses. I think it comes in cataclysmic earthquakes. And I know for you, that was your case. And for me, it was similar. Mine, unfortunately, came in that phone call in the middle of the night that you never want to have, but I got one. I was 35 and my parents and their best friends were in Mexico on vacation, 4 couples celebrating 60th birthdays, and they were hit by a bus and every couple lost a spouse. My mother was killed instantly. 2 of my parents' friends were killed instantly. One of my parents' friends, he is alive, but brain damaged. So 4 couples, everyone lost a spouse. And my parents were 60, they were young, and my world was turned upside down. And my father was in a coma for a month from the accident, missed my mother's funeral, his friend's funeral, woke up and everyone he loved was gone. And I sat by his bedside, and really in those moments, it was faith. I had incredible family and community and support that, you know, kind of in a lifetime, and hearing Dionne giving back to where she came from, you feel like you can't give back when you receive so much. There's no way in a lifetime you can give back what you were given, which is kind of how I felt. And a year later, I was asked to go to Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, and I met a mother whose son was run over in a car accident. And she said her son was going home Thanksgiving Day, which is the day that my father had gone home the year before. And my friend who had invited me was the only chaplain at Children's Hospital Los Angeles for 300,000 children. And he asked me and a group of friends if we would help him provide more chaplains. He wanted a nonprofit to provide chaplains of all faiths. And I said, I've never started a nonprofit. I'm grieving. I have 3 little boys. I mean, I'm philanthropic, but like what? And but when I heard this mother tell me her story in the halls, it was almost a year to the day. There was no denying that I was being called to serve. And that was the moment that changed everything. And it's been a 20-year journey since then of service at multiple levels.
What is the common denominator between the founders that you interview? Like, do we all have one thing?
Yeah, I would say 95% have gone through a traumatic event or a near miss. 5% have had a really close near miss to something and have had enormous gratitude. But that loss is the catalyst for change. We all get handed a bad card. None of us get out of here without one. I mean, I'm just convinced. but it's what we do with that card. And the 1.6 million of us that use that card for good are role models for the rest of us. And it's okay if you don't use it for good. You don't know what to do with the card when you get it. But a lot of people have turned that pain into purpose. You have, you and your husband have, I have. You don't know what you're going to do when it happens. It just happens. It's a journey. It's a journey that we're on, and ultimately, there's a lot of light at the end of a dark tunnel. Sometimes you just don't see it.
I'm just impressed that there's 1.6 million founders just in the United States.
In the United States,
That's,
I haven't talked to all of them yet. But I've been 12 years.
many-
I've been doing my best. I've done thousands. I started in 2011 interviewing them before there was podcasting. So I've been one a week for 12 years or 13 years, a long time.
Well, you're
Yeah.
making a dent. So I
I'm
wish you a lot
trying
of
little by
luck to
little.
get to
Thank you.
1.6.
Yes, and I think I have 2 more to talk to you tonight, so I'm excited.
There you go. I think you do.
3 more, great.
So why does charity matter so much?
You know what? I think at our roots as human beings, we were in tribes, we were in villages, we took care of each other. That's who we are as human beings. And I think the bigger or smaller our world gets, we forget that, and we focus on ourselves, and we forget just the simple act of taking care of our neighbor in the most basic way. And so it matters. And it also, it forms and builds our community infrastructure. And when we don't tend to the infrastructure, things fall apart. And that infrastructure starts with being kind to one another. It's just that simple.
Now I'm going to bring in Dionne and David again, and I ask you the same question. Do you agree with Heidi about this, or do you have another take on it? Why charity matters?
I was sitting here literally nodding my head and saying, yes, yes, this is it. Being able to take care of my community is why I started Project Roots. Being able to feed my community is why I started Project Roots. I didn't want to experience, or someone else, excuse me, to experience what me and my family went through, which was, what's the next meal going to be? A lot of times people who commit crimes it's because of theft. It's because they didn't have enough money, to eat the food that you see around me. So how can we give some of this food away to make it easier to lighten that load? Food is so big in my world, and it's a part of everybody's world. We all have to eat. So to Heidi's point, taking care of your community is just so, so important, and it resonates really deep within me. So thank you for sharing that.
That's incredible, because you actually touched on something. I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I actually read a study. I'm thinking it's out of California, a community out of California. We can find that if anybody wants to look it up on Google, but they decided to do sort of a social experiment, and they knew what their crime rate was. And what they started to do was make sure all the families in that community had food. They had groceries every week for a period of time. I think it was probably 6 months or something. So everybody had access to food. They had groceries, they had food on their table for their children. Their children didn't go to school hungry. And guess what happened? Crime rates dramatically dropped. It's just food. Food is the basis of everything. I mean, air, water, food. We'll survive. I guess you need to know how to make fire to stay warm, but really, food is it. If we don't have water, food, and air to breathe, we don't exist. That's it, David.
Right. Well, Heidi hit on something. I'd like to go just a tiny bit deeper. Before the Industrial Revolution, there was no such thing as a nonprofit. Like Heidi said, communities took care of each other. You relied on your neighbor, and that is biblical. That goes back to the Bible, where be your brother's keeper. You are all your brothers and sisters. And the book of Acts makes a real big deal out of community and giving so that everybody can have something. So yeah, that's an extremely important theme, if you will, as to why nonprofits are important today, is because we've lost that agricultural pre-industrial business where people moved to cities and had to work long hours and many days. And so you know, it's kind of hard to constantly look for a neighbor to do something for you because we're all hectic. We're all living a busy life. So the nonprofit plays a key role. Like Dionne said, food is a critical element. And like you produced a story about how food actually can lower the crime rate of a community. So yeah, I think the value that nonprofits and what I'll call servant leaders bring to communities is that love thy neighbor concept.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some misconceptions that each of you had about charity before you became social impact leaders? Heidi?
I think, I think that I think there's kind of, I think we love to categorize, right? As humans, we love to slot people. And so we'll say, oh, the philanthropists, those are the fancy people that give lots of money. And then there's the little volunteers that are in the PTA and they're helping the little league moms and they're volunteering at church. And then there's those charity people that just, give charity and they do it because they feel guilty or whatever. I think those are some common ways we categorize and slot people, which isn't fair or accurate. I think everybody is charitable and I really believe I believe people are good, truly, innately are good. And I think that people really do want to help each other, but sometimes, to David's point about how busy we are, how pulled away we are from our communities, it's not in front of you, right? It's not something that you think of first. You think of your to-do list. You don't think about what you're going to do for somebody else, which is really why we're here, because we are trying to get people to flip the script on that, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that we like to say, it's kind of like our motto at Trinity International Ministries, is we like to say that you need to give away what you cannot keep to gain what you can never lose. And philanthropy is actually a combination of two Greek words, and I forget what they are, but it means the love of humankind. So that's a misnomer that most people think, oh, the philanthropists are the big ritzy, they write a check. Well, there's checkbook philanthropists. Sure there are. There's a lot of those. But there's also people who give their time and their talents and their treasure as well. So you don't have to be that ritzy write a check type of philanthropist. You can be the volunteer who goes into a soup kitchen, or after church, you're handing out donuts and coffee to the congregation, or whatever, picking up litter on a Saturday morning or something like that. So yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah, I would have to agree with both of you. Charity to me is community. It takes an entire community for our operations to really see its success. From that one volunteer in our soup kitchen, we used to cook soups in our kitchen and give it to the homeless down in downtown Phoenix before the encampment was closed. But sometimes I wasn't even in the kitchen. I had to be home with my family. And thank God for those 12 wonderful elderly women who didn't have much time on their hands and wanted to make all those soups for those homeless people in Phoenix. We would not be able to complete our mission. We say here at Project Roots that volunteers are the heart of our project. So just want to elevate what everyone else has said and add my little piece there.
You've got a great point that, it's not actually, in my own opinion, I'm being kind of self-centered at this point, but it's not really the production of what you're doing. It's the way your heart is moving you to do something. And that's really where it is. If you can find heart-centered people to be around, magical things happen.
It's so true.
It's true.
Collaboration within the nonprofit world also is something that I'm newer to the nonprofit world than, well, Dionne, I guess we started our organizations the same. Heidi, I think you've been around a little bit longer, David.
Little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
20 years.
Wow. I'm not worthy.
I'm still standing. I'm still standing.
That's the
I'm still here.
impressive part. That's right. That you still, what is it that makes you still want to do it? You know, some days I'm like, what did
I
I
think
get
David
myself
just
into?
said it, right? It's that heart-centered. First of all, it's a dopamine hit and it's addictive. So when you help somebody, you get a hit, and whether you like it or not, we're addicted to it. And it's better than being addicted to chocolate or Instagram. It's way more dopamine. When you help someone, you have a physiological reaction that is like nothing else.
Yeah.
So there is that selfish thing. But when you help someone and you're even a tiny cog in changing someone's life, it's you just want more. You can't help it. And my husband says, couldn't you have just been a shopaholic? Wouldn't that have just been easier? maybe a little less work. Yeah. But it is, it's the most rewarding. When you meet someone who's a giver, and however way they give, like David said, time, talent, treasure, however they are happy, they are grateful, and they are happy. And if you want to find joy, go help somebody. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does a world without charity look like?
Mm.
I don't want to be there, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to picture. And I know, there's a lot of communities, inner cities, and different parts of this country and the world, really, that there's high crime, there's abuse, there's all of those other things. But you know what? There's still people who are helping each other. They're just not as visible. And what this world needs are more heart-centered people to flip that switch or move that fulcrum a little bit to balance things out a little bit more in my own mind. But philanthropy is a critical part of our society. And like we said earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is and why it is and so forth. But it's, as Heidi said, you can't do without it. It's a must-be part of your life.
How many of you had parents, grandparents, siblings that led the way to show you to be philanthropic, to volunteer your time, your talent, and treasure? I love that. I love that line because I did. I grew up on a farm. Heidi knows that. Dionne knows that. David knows that. Everybody knows that. Grew up on a farm. I had a mom who, she not only ran the farm and raised this huge family and all the hangers on, and made sure the cattle were taken care of, and the chickens were, I was going to say the cattle the chickens were milked, but no. So just making sure that everything was running on the farm, right? And she still had time to go to volunteer at the curling rink or at the VON. She was president of VON for a number of years, which was the Victorian Order of Nurses in her community. And she wasn't even a nurse, but she was a caring, loving, generous person. And when I grew up, I wanted to be like her. I didn't think of running a nonprofit, though. It wasn't in my goal list. It was not there. And
None of us do.
No.
It was like,
None of us.
I'm running a nonprofit now. But really,
everyone I've interviewed, Siobhan, not one person when they were younger said that when they grow up, they want to be a nonprofit founder.
Right.
Not one.
Wow.
We fall into this work. It comes to us. We don't go looking for it, right? It comes to us.
Right.
But were there role models in your life, Heidi?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. My grandmother, my grandmother had 7 children, and I remember when she was in her 90s, she was, at church, she was visiting the sick and the elderly, like bringing them communion, and she was, 15 years older than the people she was serving. I have an aunt who's a nun who has spent her life she's been in Nigeria. She's been on Oprah. She's pretty incredible. Service is in my family, and a big, Irish Catholic family that had a lot of faith and just rolled up her sleeves and helped people. And that's just what we did. And I went to school, and our motto was actions, not words. And it was poured into me from my earliest memories of this is what you do, period.
Sure. That it was the way, very similar path for me. Big Irish and Polish. Isn't that amazing? Big family. I was one of 8 children. My father was a policeman in the city of Chicago. We lived in Chicago. But it was Cub Scouts. We're going to the hospital where the vets are to give them Christmas presents. All the way through, Boy Scouts, we would do different service projects. I was in the church, active as a lector, communicant, and ever since I got into the business world, I was part of some kind of nonprofit service organization, sitting on a board or a committee or helping raise money or whatever. But I never, ever thought that I would be, open a ministry or a nonprofit or whatever you want to call what we do. It just bang. One day it was, this is what you're going to do. Okay.
Yeah, I think same for me. My mother is she's like my biggest role model, and she's in Houston, Texas now. But when we were here, I remember us going to a grocery store, and I know she didn't have a lot of money, but she still chose to give a man that was sitting outside of that grocery store money. And I remember I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I said, Mom, why did you give that man money? We need that money, we're eating food at the grocery store and sometimes at the food bank, why would you do that? And she looked down at me and said, baby, everybody's got to eat. And that really hit home for me. It's the reason why we started Project Roots, is we wanted to make sure that everybody can eat, or at least know how to grow their own food, empower them how to do that as well. So I think that's why I'm still trucking. And Heidi, God bless you and David and you, Siobhan, and every nonprofit leader that is running an organization and being a servant leader. I got my MBA at Grand Canyon University here in Arizona, where servant leadership is what we were taught. So when you said that, David, that really rung in me as well. I know I'm in my right path and in alignment with what God wants me to do. And it shows by every single person that I get to feed every day.
God bless you.
I
That's
love
terrific.
that.
Yeah.
I run a youth leadership organization, and that's my day job, and not the nonprofit I started, but the one that I currently run. And we say you cannot lead unless you serve. And we teach 3,000 students a year leadership, but we teach them that they have to serve. And our college kids teach our high school kids leadership, and our high school kids teach our middle school kids.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
we serve 3,000 students, but we have 4 employees and 150 volunteers. And I inherited this 48-year-old organization. When I inherited it was 30 or so, and we were serving 300 kids, and now we're serving 3,000. But planting that seed of compassion that we were all given, luckily the 4 of us, by our families. Not everyone's given that seed. And so, but it doesn't have to be planted as a child. It can be planted at any time. And right. I see these college students so excited about giving back and their lives changing. But what I see is also the mental health benefits for these kids that are really struggling when they flip the switch and they become a mentor. When a high school student has a 6th grader thinking that they rule the world and they are amazing, and when a 6th grader has a high school student say, you're incredible, that 2-way cup being filled up from each of them, what that does for their lives is better than any antidepressant or anything that we can do for our kids. So I think it's never too late to start.
There you go. Can I interject a story? Do we have time for this?
Yeah, we do.
Like a couple of
Yeah, we
minutes.
can do whatever we want.
In 2018, I went to India for 6 weeks, and we did a social experiment. We went to a university, Jawaharlal Nehru. Remember the Nehru jacket? Well, the man's name was Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNTU, Technical University, largest tech university in India. And we took 20 students, juniors and seniors. And in India, there's so much pressure on youth to score well in school, marks and grades, where you stand in your class and how your grade point average is, because they're fighting for jobs. And these young people want to get into tech. Well, Deloitte's got a huge undergo there. But they say, we interview these kids all the time and they can't talk. They are just browbeat by their parents and their teachers to score well in school. So we took these 20 kids and we tagged them all to different nonprofits. And then after 2 weeks, we switched them to another nonprofit. And after 2 weeks again, we did it a third time. And then they were graded every 2 weeks by 3 different nonprofits. And those kids came back and they were totally different people. They were communicative. They were happy. They were fun. Because they were helping other people. It was just phenomenal. And now that's a permanent program at JNTU. So
love that.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Love that.
So as nonprofit leaders, we know that, the past few years, as the inflation ticks up in the country and people's disposable income goes down, and because they're paying more for groceries and energy and, to fill their car to get to work, what are some ways people can get involved other than just signing up as a volunteer? But are there ways that people can support the social impact world without breaking the bank?
Oh, there's so many ways. And I literally was at the store today, and I wanted to, it just about took my breath away what my groceries cost. But they asked me if I wanted to round up at the store. Do you want to round up? And it was like 44 cents. And I was like, yeah, of course I do. It's 44 cents. So I got home and I thought, I'm really curious about that. So I looked up how many rounding up apps there are or programs, and there's actually a lot. But in 2022, $749 million was donated through Roundup apps to charities.
Wow.
So that's the easiest way, right? And all these companies like Taco Bell and grocery store chains are asking you. And sometimes, you can be twice in a day, like you hit CVS, they want you to round up, and you hit the market and they want you to round up. And you're like, okay, I rounded up a couple of, but there's something that's so simple. And I felt guilty because I felt so good for my little 44 cent. I got a hit for 44 cents and I felt a little bad about that, but it's so easy. But I also think that there are really great technology things like catchafire.org for nonprofits and for volunteers. I don't know if you're familiar with it. If you're a nonprofit, you can go in and you can say, I'm looking for a marketing director, or I'm looking for a business plan, or I'm looking for an accountant, or I'm looking for a social media person. So nonprofits can pitch there, and it could be a 2-week, it could be a 1 week, but it's kind of high-end volunteer. But the volunteers can say, I don't want to stuff envelopes. I'm an attorney and I bill $300 an hour, but I love food, or I love animals, or I love leadership, and I want to give my time to a board or an organization that needs some pro bono work. So it's a matchmaking, and it's called catchafire.org. And I think it's one of the most brilliant organizations. And for college students or people looking to build their resume, to try on a really great cause and use your gifts to give away, I think it's one of the greatest things you can do.
That sounds terrific. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. That's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Okay.
Catchafire.org. Yeah.
Well, that's how I got a majority of our volunteers since maybe, well, 18 months ago when I started looking for grant writers and lawyers and marketers and all these people, and we still have an all volunteer team. But I mean, we have 3 Fortune 500 lawyers that are at the ready. You know, we call them up and we say, or email them and we go, "Hi team, this is me. Hi team. Can you take a look at this MOU?" And they do. And you know, with chat and all these AI programs, a lot of the legal stuff can, you know, for nonprofits can be written very easily, very quickly, but you have to have a set of legal eagle eyes on it right afterwards. So, you know, there's times where they go, "Oh no, you gotta do this and that." And sometimes it breaks the contract, right? Because somebody doesn't want to, "Oh, I don't want to sign that contract." So then the project's not, you know, not going to move forward because you actually have the lawyers looking out for you. But they're probably $500 an hour lawyers, more, who knows? And they're just at the ready. Like, "Hey, Siobhan, okay, yeah, we'll do that by Monday." And it's amazing.
It's great.
Sounds terrific.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
awesome. Oh, please go ahead. I would
no,
love
go
to
ahead,
more
Dionne.
about. I was going to ask you, Siobhan, the Catch a Fire. Is that who you're speaking of? Is it the same people that you're working with? Did you find them in that group? Oh, this is somebody. Okay, gotcha.
No, I
Gotcha.
just went to LinkedIn. I actually started looking for volunteers on LinkedIn. I just hit the little briefcase button and I wrote an ad. And I think they allow you 30 people before, you know, it stops. They cut your ad off. But 30 people, I did it, you know, I did it for grant writers. I did it, and I've done it again and again because your volunteers cycle in and out, right? They have
Yes.
lives, they're
But
busy, they do a little bit
Right.
and they leave, right?
People want to know that. I mean, if you're a $500 an hour attorney, I'm not saying you don't want to go work in a soup kitchen, but it probably isn't the greatest use of your time and skill. And you know, if you're a $500 an hour attorney, that you are really helping an organization with your gifts. And anyone who has a gift, whether you're a musician or you're great at social media or whatever that talent is that you have, you know, wants their gift to be used to the greatest extent. And so that's why I think if half of the process is getting people to realize they have gifts and that it's a gift that needs to be shared, right? I think that's half the challenge we have in the nonprofit space.
I would have to agree. Another board I sit on for the Phoenix Food Co-op, I sit as their board president. I was voluntold to be their board president. I did not enroll for that at all. But we did have 2 attorneys on our board that were just literally there for filling out all of those forms, formulating a co-op. We've never done that before. And boy, I tell you, if we didn't have those attorneys on staff, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Instead of, you know, being in the grocery store, which we were outside, that wouldn't have been a good use of their time, to your point, Heidi. So that is an excellent point. And we've gotten so much further because we've had attorneys on our staff here.
Beautiful.
What's
I
one
just
thing
would like to add one more thing too, is you can
Sure.
also become a storyteller. Like if you may not have money or a big skill, but you're a chatterbox and you like to talk, you know, be a storyteller for a nonprofit organization that you're proud of or that you have supported. Tell people about them. That has been one of the biggest things that has helped our organization, is a huge word of mouth. A farmer passed away a couple years ago, and he caught wind of Project Roots right before he did. And he is a Caucasian farmer and really wanted to make sure he gave some of his wealth to BIPOC farmers. Long story short, he blessed us with a $45,000 check right after he passed his way. His wife brought it to us. And so just by hearing our story, just by hearing the story, he made sure that we were taken care of. And we honor him. We do an award every year at our fundraiser in his name. And we're just super grateful for him and his entire family.
That's great.
What
Beautiful.
an amazing
Beautiful.
thing.
Beautiful.
That's terrific.
And it's true. I guess, you know, you can bequeath funds in your will to your
Sure.
favorite charity. And ours is growingtogive.org.
Good job, Siobhan.
Shameless plug coming in. Incoming shameless plug.
Most of the show, I get to do that.
That's right.
Are you in it for the money, David?
I haven't earned a nickel in close
I'm
to 6
telling you.
years. I've been working pro bono since 2020. Well, that's 4 years.
Yeah.
And I got really, really sick very early on, and the hospitals
Mm.
wouldn't even take me. They didn't know what was going on yet. This was in February of 2020. And I had already been involved with what I'm doing now in Africa, but the Lord put it on my heart after 10 weeks in bed, not knowing if I was going to live or die, that, I had been building something, but I had my ladder on the wrong building. So he said, you come and work for me now, and this is what we're going to do. And that's how it started. And I've been working for free ever since.
We are sort of getting close to the end of the show, and I want to wrap up because I want to give everybody an opportunity to share some final words. David, let's start with you. We'll give the gentleman in the room the
thorn.
third last word, or the fourth last word. So is there something you want to leave our viewers with, the ones that are in our audience today and the ones that will be watching this, a year, 2 years, 5 years from now?
Sure. One thing that I have learned from being involved with the Center Vision Leadership Foundation, working with a lot of different nonprofits and ministries and clergy, is that small nonprofits are always chasing for the next donor. And we've learned that because they're not taking care of the donors that they have, I would recommend that they write them a thank you card, handwritten thank you card, the day they receive a donation. Doesn't matter if it's $5 or $500. And keep them involved. Keep talking to them, letting them know how their money is being used. And I think people who feel like they're included will stick closer to the mission, as opposed to, there will always be checkbook philanthropists who will write you a check and you never hear from them again, but that doesn't matter. Thank them, invite them, celebrate them, that sort of thing, because donors appreciate it. And not just that standard form letter that you see once or twice a year. Get creative, do some good stuff. That's what I'd like to give them a suggestion for.
Get creative. How about you, Dionne? We've been trying to get creative, doing some projects together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to what we create together as we continue to serve our community together with a very, very similar cause. I'm so glad that we ran into each other. And what I always like to leave every show or interview that I do is, you are powerful enough to grow your own food, even if it's just with one thing, and grow enough for somebody else. That also is charity. If you've got some tomatoes in your backyard and you can't eat all those tomatoes, make tomato soup and go give it to your neighbor. So that's what I would leave with. It's just, as you're growing and developing yourself, there's probably somewhere or someone very, very close to you or in your neighborhood or in your community that could benefit or even want to learn what you're doing. And I got to say, David, thank you so much for say thank you to your donors, whether that be the $5 donor or the $55,000 donor.
Yeah,
They are all, or the donor that donated their time, right, and their energy to your organization. Everyone is so important. And again, the volunteers, they're the heart of this project. And I think they're the heart of a lot of organizations' projects as well. And I think they're also philanthropists as well. So thank you.
First of all, I want to thank David Dunworth and Dionne Washington for sharing their stories and their time with us. I know running a nonprofit is very time consuming, and I know Dionne is often, and I don't know what she's doing late at night. She's sending me messages, things like that. All of a sudden I'm like, whoa, she's working even more than me. But Heidi, I want to say thank you for being the catalyst for this topic tonight. And Heidi Johnson from Charity Matters podcast on Spotify, which you can see every
we're almost weekly. And then my shameless plug incoming is a book coming out October 1st called Change for Good. And when we think about self-help, we think about getting rich or getting thin, but we don't think about being a good person. And the simple things, like just like the conversation we talked about, how we lead, how we serve, how we help. The simplest way to be happy, the simplest way to find joy is to help somebody else. And that's what I'd like to leave everybody with. So look for change for good in October, but just help someone, just check on your neighbor, just help someone. It's just so simple. And thank you for having me. It's really been a treat.
Thank you for sharing with us. And I want to leave everybody with a thought. It doesn't matter what you do, it's how you do it. So just give of, as both David and Heidi talked about, time, talent, or treasure because charity does matter. And so this has been Feel Good, Share Good's Real Talk, where we keep it real to heal. Good night, everyone.